Picture this. Australia, 1932. The world is in the grip of the Great Depression, and on the vast plains of Western Australia, a conflict is brewing. But it's not what you think. Soldiers armed with machine guns, ammunition, and a mission, all focused on one unexpected enemy. Emus. Welcome to the Great Emu War.
What is up? What is up? Jeffrey, we are back.
We are back with...
We're back, baby.
The whole podcast. It's coming back.
That is right. Yep. Well, welcome everybody back to Casual History 2.0. We're not officially calling it that, but welcome back to brand new episodes of Casual History. If you've never heard of us before, we are two brothers who really just explore the really fun and crazy adventurous stories from history that you may have not heard about. And we get to discuss them together and discover them live with each other. And so that's really what this podcast is about. Jeffrey, how you feeling?
I feel good. To piggyback off of that kind of reintroduction, the typical setup is we each bring in a story each week. We alternate. He may find something interesting and bring it to the podcast one week. I'll take the next week, and we go back and forth like that each week. And so this time around, we're starting off with me. Yes. And I brought in the content today in the story. And we're going to discuss, and I'm going to do my best at retelling and explaining what I know about this story. And that's really the theme of this podcast. We're casual about it because we're not historians. We just like to do it.
That's right. We just love history.
And so for all you haters out there,
all of you,
we don't have a degree in this, and we've made that very clear from the beginning.
So that's our disclaimer for the rest of our Casual History podcast.
But we are aiming at getting the facts right, always. We're never going in it to just wing it, you know? We're bringing in a
wing
story.
It? Is that about your bird?
Exactly. That's a
podcast?
Great jumping point to this podcast. I found a headline.
Yeah.
And it captured me immediately, and so I just had to jump in.
Heck yeah.
But that's the wrap up of kind of who we are and what we do each week. We do have social media, just kind of as a disclaimer. We're going to be adding some new little additions, and we have lots of ideas of how we can expand this theme of casual history and bring it to different platforms. Jacob specifically is the idea man here. He came to me a week or two ago with a full-on 6-month business plan. So that gives you an idea of who does what in this partnership. But I like to think I bring the creative flair. I don't know.
You do.
I bring enough, I hope.
You bring a lot, man. You bring a lot. And I just want to kind of previewing this this episode in particular too. Jeffrey, have you ever seen an emu live in person?
I have, yeah.
Oh, you have? Where?
Yeah, at a zoo.
I mean that makes sense.
Not in the wild, of course.
I was literally just trying to think to myself. I was like, I guess I've seen one at a zoo before too, but they are very weird. I don't know what it is about like emus and ostriches together. They kind of like freak me out a little bit. Is that you?
Well, this story might give you nightmares then.
Oh God.
Let's just dive in, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, today we are diving into one of Australia's most bizarre and incredible true stories. As you've already mentioned, Jacob, emus are large, flightless birds native to the country, and they're about to become the central figure in a military operation, which blew my mind when I first heard about this, because you hear Emu War and you think, what?
I'm immediately thinking of like emus in full battle gear, just like decked to the nines.
Your expectation is correct.
Okay.
These creatures capable of running at incredible speeds were about to clash with human ingenuity, determination, and perhaps a touch of overconfidence. So let's set the stage, shall we?
Let's do it.
It's the early 30s in Western Australia. It's hot.
Yeah.
A remote land of wild beauty and untamed nature. But the world at the time is grappling with something far less poetic, the Great Depression. Economies are crumbling, dreams are shattering, and in this sprawling landscape, farmers are wrestling with their own private crisis, struggling to make ends meet. So just kind of the undercurrent of what sets the stage here. Among these farmers are veterans of World War I. So hardened men who had fought for the country in far-off lands and are now back home fighting a different battle to feed their families. They were essentially the heroes who had returned home only to face poverty. And so there's a big struggle here that when I was reading about it was emphasized on just the ability to farm and, again, provide ends meet.
Yeah, it was essential.
Yeah, and so poverty was running rampant, obviously, with everything that was going on, and the government's solution to this crisis was a bit generous and flawed, as it's portrayed at least. They granted the veterans land, which just vast stretches of earth in Australia, but the land was tough to farm, and so it was stubborn and difficult to cultivate, and the soil resisted the plow. The rain was scarce, and hope over time was dwindling. And then enters scene 2.
Oh no! That's a good little intro, Jeff. I'm really excited for where this is going.
Well, as if scripted by a whimsical playwright, around 20,000 emus began descending on these farms.
Oh my God, this is a nightmare.
So just want to picture that real quick. Let that sit in the mind. 20,000 emus.
I'm already sweating. I don't know what I would do to protect my family against an army of 20,000 emus.
Yeah, the tall, the funny description of the bird, enigmatic birds with powerful legs and curious eyes. I think that's a good description.
And they're fast too, man. Like it's not like you can outrun. Yeah, man. It'd be hunting season.
Well, you'd think. Imagine the chaos. So try to picture that. Okay, 20,000 emus coming into the farmland and just destroying the earth.
Okay.
So,
not to interrupt you, but I just immediately thought of Lord of the Rings. You know, when they're like running down the hill at the end of the battle. I just imagine all emus like decked out in army gear, like 20,000. Sorry,
that's what goes on in your imagination. You know,
yes.
I think maybe some artists out there could do a little artist rendering.
Please. That'll be our thumbnail for this episode. Is I'm gonna AI generate 20,000 emus in battle gear. Oh, I can't wait. I'll share it on our socials after.
Yeah. Well, as I was saying, they were causing chaos, right? They came through the farms, knocking down fences, devouring crops, and just leaving behind a trail of ruin. And one farmer, a veteran named John, who they describe as both aged with worry, describes the scene. And this is in quotes. "We were at our wits' end. The birds were relentless, and we tried everything, from scarecrows to shouts, but they were like a force of nature, a tide that couldn't be stopped. We needed help, real help, not just promises."
Oh my God.
End quote. So, going through it, man. John's going through it.
John is begging for help.
Yeah, he is begging
somebody.
For help. And the government responds. So, facing both a practical problem of farming that they need and a symbolic challenge given the circumstances of the undercurrent that we already talked about, they responded with a decision that was as unorthodox as it was decisive.
Okay.
They decided to deploy the military. Like they said, get in there now. So,
oh my God, I'm ready. Okay,
what kind of already reeling, from economic struggle and social changes, we're about to witness a spectacle. Okay,
I can only imagine the spectacle.
Politicians debated the wisdom of this choice. Journalists began to sniff a story, And the farmers, the weary men and women on the front line, waited with a mixed hope of skepticism and hope, as I already said. But as the soldiers prepared for this unique mission, the emus continued their march. They were oblivious to human plans, guided by instincts honed over a millennia. These birds are ancient, man. These birds are no joke.
They're living dinosaurs.
Yeah. So
Straight up.
They're like humans. Cool, man. We've been through this before. Okay.
Yeah.
They've been hunted. They've been challenged, and they've come out victorious because they're still there. There's 20,000 of them.
The initial thought, though, is that like you bring in the army, right? There's no way birds can stand up to the army, but I'm very interested to see what tactics they deploy or what all unfolds here, because this is going to be nuts.
Yeah. Well, as the soldiers prepared for this mission, as I said, this expanded version essentially dives into. Excuse me, hold on. Let me lost my place there talking about the emus being dinosaurs.
Listen, it's terrifying. I get it.
So I guess we'll jump in with the leader of this army that comes in to take care of the emus. We have Major GPW Meredith. Okay? Remember that name.
Okay.
He's a career military man, and again, described with a stern face and a reputation for precision.
Okay.
He
no
received
better man.
Yeah.
No better man for the job.
He received the call to duty. Okay? The enemy emus. The location, the vast, wild fields of Western Australia. And it was a mission like no other. But Major Meredith approached it with the same seriousness of a military campaign.
As you should.
Yeah.
As you should.
He took it in stride. He said, I will be the one to wipe out every emu on this farmland.
Oh, okay. I hope there's a statue of this man somewhere in Australia.
You'd think, right?
I hope so.
Well, alongside Major Meredith, there were two soldiers, Gunner S. McMurray and Gunner J. Olahora, both who were experienced in warfare, but obviously they were all new to this unique battle of fighting emus. And so they arrived on November 2nd, 1932, armed with Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition.
Holy smokes. Those birds are toast, man.
I wouldn't be so sure.
What?
So when they, just to kind of, to describe the scene, they obviously, when you roll up with your machine guns and your
sayonara. I'll see you guys later.
Your team here, you're going to be taken back. And so they were. That essentially says that they were astonished by the sight of thousands of emus grazing, and essentially unaware of what was to come. Okay? And so
they're about to meet their maker, man.
We'll jump into the first engagement.
Okay.
The first engagement comes, right, to take out the emus, and it was planned with military precision. The soldiers positioned themselves around the emus with their guns aimed and the emus in sight. They figured, make a circle, set up the guns, and just blast them.
And we're eating well tonight, boys. Let's do it.
But what followed was anything but precise. Bullets flew, but missed their mark. The emus, rather than fleeing in panic, scattered with an agility that seemed almost intentional. They dodged the bullets, their movements fluid and unpredictable. Only a dozen were killed, and the field was filled with the echoes of both gunfire and what seemed like mocking bird calls.
What?
So the first
this
engagement
happened, Jeffrey.
This
happened in history.
This is a true story.
Okay, I was about to say, I was like, if this is the first podcast back and you're lying to me, because this is ridiculous.
This is a true story.
Oh my God.
So the first engagement did not go well. You'd think with 20,000 targets in front of you and 10,000 rounds of ammunition, you'd be able to go just shoot and you'll hit something.
It's a machine gun. You don't even have to aim the sucker, just in the general direction.
What's funny is that this is probably the first time an emu has ever experienced a machine gun ever, right? Obviously, I would think. And their immediate tactic, you see why they've lived so long. They were elusive and they just were able to scatter. They didn't run away, I guess. They were, or like cause a panic. They're like, oh, okay, another danger, another threat. We've been here before. Move. Move with grace.
That makes them a little bit more scary in my mind, honestly.
Yeah.
The fact that they can dodge bullets now, apparently, like the Matrix, like Neo.
Yeah. Well, the Major Meredith was both flushed with exertion and embarrassment after this.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of set him on a course. He refused to be deterred. Each subsequent attempt, however, seemed more futile than the last. The soldiers tried to herd the emus. At one point, a strategy used in battle, but the emus were just as elusive, slipping through the lines like water. One soldier, bewildered and breathless, said, in quotes, "It was like chasing shadows."
Oh my God.
It's Jason
This man
Bourne.
sees emus in his dreams.
Yeah.
He can never go to a zoo again. Never.
No, I mean, with his 1932.
Yeah.
But true. Vehicles got stuck in the rugged terrain. Guns jammed in the heat after certain points, basically, of just trying this over and over. Frustration grew into a palpable force. And so it was at this point that the media began to take notice. What's going on over there? Why is this taking so long?
There's 20,000. You have machine guns. Why aren't they eliminated by now?
First attempt, they killed 12.
Yeah.
As they're, machine guns ready, 10,000 rounds of ammunition.
Are they
Pretty crazy.
bulletproof? What the heck?
Oh,
is
yeah.
going
Yeah.
on
Oh, yeah.
here?
We'll get into that. It took, I have a fun fact. Remind me about that.
Okay.
About how many bullets each emu took to take down.
Oh my God.
Because it'll
stop.
freak you out a little bit.
I'm already freaked out.
But at this point, when the media began to take notice, initially with curiosity and then with a mix of amusement and disbelief, journalists then began to flock to the scene, ready to capture the absurdity. And the nation watched, some with concern for the farmers, others with laughter, obviously, at the spectacle.
Right.
Cartoonists had a field day, and editorial pages filled with poetic musings on man versus bird.
I bet those cartoons were incredible.
I bet you we could find them. We could probably share some.
I would love to post some.
But the soldiers, their pride was bruised, but their determination was unwavering. They, at this point, after many attempts, paused to regroup. Major Meredith consulted maps, studied the emu's behavior, and planned new strategies to try to take out the emu threat.
Wow.
But the emus, oblivious to human intent, were relentless. They continued all along this time to invade the fields. Their appetite for grain didn't stop, their survival instinct honed by nature. And as the country held its breath, wondering how this bizarre war would end, the Great Emu War turned into a symbol of something more profound. It was a dance between human ambition and nature's whimsy, a story unfolding with each misstep, each triumphant bird call, and each human sigh. And now the stage was set for the continued battle, one that would captivate the nation and become a metaphor that we'll have to figure out as we go along. And we're going to take a break and hit the ad section of our podcast.
We will be right back because I need to hear what happens next.
And we'll be right back.
Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got the platform that allows you to make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money. All in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters allows you to record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer. So no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. And then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else that podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. And with Spotify Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. Best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since I discovered Spotify for Podcasters, I feel like having options like video podcasts and question and answer polls has allowed me to be creative on a whole nother level. I highly recommend that you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
Thanks for listening to those ads. That helps support our podcast and keep us going on this part 2 of Casual History 2.0, excuse me, as Jacob put it.
It helps us to fend off the emus.
Yep. And speaking of, let's just jump right back into the story. And so the stage was set at this point. After multiple attempts, Major Meredith was regrouping. Journalists were starting to mock the scene of what was going on. Obviously, you put 20,000 emus and an army face to face, and the emus are winning, according to the visual of only laughing. Very few emus being downed in this whole time. It's gonna, inevitably lead to jokes and mocking. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, if I was an Australian citizen at this point in time, and this was happening after the economic collapse of the Great Depression, after the World War I, and this would just seem like a fever dream. Yeah. My 100%. Government's
100%
army is fighting emus and they're not doing well.
Maybe it was good for, I don't want to gloss over, because I laugh so much because the idea of this is absolutely hilarious and bonkers, but also realizing that this affected real people, and that's the reason why the army came in the first place. I don't want to gloss over that.
No, I don't either, but it's wild.
Can you even imagine you sitting with your wife in the front watching the army try to take care of some birds in your front lawn? And exactly. It had to look like a dream. It had to look like this came out of nowhere.
Right. And the government, we'll just jump back in here to kind of set the scene. The government obviously was spurred by that political pressure that we're talking about.
Right.
And we're desperate at this point because of the farmers and the kind of uproar that was happening was undeterred. Okay. The operation resumed after a regroup, more determined and more elaborate. So this time, guns were mounted on moving trucks, a modern innovation to match the emu's uncanny speed. So this is something they just came up with. They were like, we need to put the machine guns on the trucks, and the trucks will be our emu legs, and we will, try to imagine, an emu running in a truck going with a machine gun on the back. It's a pretty movie-like scene. But in response to this, the emus seem to have their own strategies, of understanding warfare. They would scatter at the approach of the soldiers, then regroup, their formations defying human logic. So they would scatter, come back, scatter, come back. So they would not follow a certain trajectory of movement, right, I guess, which made it really difficult to predict where they're going to move, where to aim as they're running, and it just led to chaos.
They just had this unspoken coordination between each other, but it didn't look like it made any sense from the outside.
Animal intelligence. It's like, you've seen the birds where they're just like a flock of birds and they're all moving, weaving in and out of each other.
Yeah.
That's what it seems to be described as, but with emus and their big bodies, I guess,
incredible,
all over the place. But obviously, the journalists from across the nation began to flock to Western Australia, drawn by the sheer absurdity of the situation. And among them was Mary Walker, who was an insightful writer known for her observations and sharp critiques. Her reports filled the humor and human insight, chronicled the Emu War like a theater play. She wrote, and this is a quote, "It was like watching a comedy unfold. Men against birds, machine guns against instincts, and in the end, nature's laughter echoing in the fields."
Oh my god.
Thought that was a great line.
That's so good.
And so the Emu War obviously became a sensation, not just in Australia, but imagine the jokes, okay? And it grew outside of Australia. But it became known around the world. Newspapers ran headlines with puns, cartoons depicted soldiers in valiant but futile battles with giant birds. The public was both amused and bewildered about what was happening in Australia.
This is better than any entertainment at that time, I can only imagine.
And one particularly comedic incident became the stuff of legend. A truck loaded with soldiers and a mounted gun chased a group of emus across the field. And the scene was almost cinematic. Again, imagine, I guess we can imagine Jurassic Park,
Yeah.
Like when you're
Right.
That's what I'm imagining.
That already popped in my head too, of like the scene of all those. I don't even know the type
the
of
birds
dinosaur
running,
they are.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're all running in a group, and they're like threatening to stampede over the kids.
So I want the listener to imagine that scene of Jurassic Park, along with dust swirling emus, though are at the center, not dinosaurs, but there are dinosaurs, I guess. Emus sprinting, men yelling, and then in a moment of sheer comedy, the truck hit a ditch and crashed.
Oh.
So the birds scattered, unharmed and victorious. Another victory. Wow. And while the soldiers, who were red-faced and defeated, assessed the damage, Major Meredith, his face etched with both frustration and admiration, observed, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world."
And so quote. Then we mounted emus and we rode them into battle from then on out. That's what I want to hear next. That's the next sentence I want to hear.
Well, imagine your steed is able to take bullets like just over and over. That fun fact I was mentioning to you. Let me pull it open real quick. But it caught me off guard because I immediately had the question as I was writing this and putting this together. How many bullets did it take? Or were they just missing? Were they actually hitting the emus? And so the fun fact is, here we go. So, here we go. Okay, this is a quote. Yeah, he said, obviously, that what I just already explained, the bullet carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world. They can face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. They're like Zulus, whom even dumb bullets could not stop. That was the rest of the quote, which I thought was funny. But essentially, the per emu, I think it was like 8 bullets. It took 8 to 10 bullets to take down. I'm having a hard time pulling that open, so someone should fact check me. But I looked that exact question up because I was like, what? How many bullets did it take? And it was a lot. And understandable.
Are they just all feathers and they're just like super skinny on the inside?
They just became unfazed. They were unfazed by a lot of it.
By bullets?
No, I know. It's crazy. But a lot of it would hit them and they would be unfazed. And then their movements, it just caused chaos. Nothing ever was straightforward as point, aim, shoot, and then they would, fall down, one emu down. It never was that straightforward. And so... basically, as we just heard the situation with Major Meredith and how he thinks this is the best army in the world he's ever faced.
Right.
Days turned into weeks. This took a long period of time. And despite their best efforts, the writing was on the wall. Each failure, each comedic misstep added to the growing absurdity. And the nation watched on, some with sympathy, others with amusement, as the Great Emu War unfolded like a satirical novel.
Did they just
finally? Well, basically. So, not to give away any ending, but finally, the government, faced with mounting ridicule and undeniable reality of nature's triumph, conceded defeat. Wow. The soldiers were withdrawn, the guns silenced, and the emus left to roam the fields of Western Australia. And so. Wow. The nation was left to ponder what had just happened. Was it a tragedy, a comedy, a lesson? The Great Emu War had become a mirror reflecting human folly, resilience, and the complex dance between man and nature.
Wow.
And so another fun fact of if this is fun, I guess. How many casualties? You want to take a guess of how many casualties? Let's set the scene. 20,000 emus. Australian army coming in with machine guns. How many emus do you think were killed in this period of time? Which was a month and 1 day. It took a month and 1 day before they said, "Okay, I'm done."
Okay. Now I want to be conservative. Now after hearing all of this, but 8 bullets each. But it is a machine gun. You can't tell me that less than 100 emus died. That even 100? Sounds low. Yeah, that even sounds low by my standards here. But.
Yeah, that's low. That's
okay.
Low. But again,
so a lot more, obviously.
A lot more. But 20,000 emus. Okay, let's put this in perspective. 986 emus were killed.
That's it. That's it.
And there are 2,500 emus wounded, supposedly. That's just a claim because, like, you
just
don't
with
fight.
7 bullets, not 8.
Right.
We're just running around like normal,
Right.
acting like everything's fine.
How crazy is that?
That's
986 emus killed, 2,500 emus wounded, allegedly.
Wow. Yeah. See, I was not
Allegedly.
even giving them that much credit, and so that's on me. But my God, that's still a low number. That's still crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. And so the Great Emu War ended in a whimper, not a grand victory or any definitive defeat, but with a quiet acknowledgement of nature's triumph. You know, you just at a certain point you just go, okay.
Yeah, I'm almost like I almost admire the effort. You know, it's like you're right. There are lessons to be learned from this.
Yeah.
I don't know what they are, but there's lessons to be learned about just humans messing with nature, man.
Yeah.
Just, you know, we shouldn't always do it. We shouldn't always think that we're superior than everything else out there, but this one does crack me up quite a bit.
Yeah, and it's not the best ending, I'm not going to lie, because obviously the struggle that it caused on the farmers didn't go away.
Sure.
So, again, like there's a good line in here that is not my writing, but I wanted to put in here because I thought it was a good line was, but like the complex dance between man and nature, the tale of the Great Emu War carries intricate nuances. Because it does. So, you know, there's it's funny, obviously. But it's also pretty devastating at the time for farmers like John, whose experience in the war did not prepare him for a battle with nature. And they continued to struggle. The emus had moved on, but the scars of their invasion lingered. And the failed military operation, though a source of humor for some, brought attention to the farmers' plight. And so, newspapers and public sympathy turned towards these hardworking men and women, leading to finally some government support. And that in itself was a small victory born from an unexpected battle.
Wow. This is incredible, man. This was such a good story, and these are the fun stories that, like, I say fun. Again, there are a lot of nuances and people that were truly affected back at the time, but just hearing it now today, like realizing that these are the fun stories that, like, I never got to hear in history class. Like, genuinely, like these are the things that spark my imagination of just, like, you know, that with everything that's happened so far, it's not like we've been on planet Earth for a very long time. But you know, there's a lot of crazy, like, I know there's a lot of crazy people out there. There's a lot of crazy situations. And then eventually you're going to get stories like this somewhere. But the fact that, like, you know, that we're talking about this today and that this isn't in, like, school books or stuff like that. Maybe it is. Maybe
I don't know that it's that, well, maybe it is.
Noteworthy.
Noteworthy. There's probably a lot
emus,
more
it was.
history. I think, you know, it might take presidents of like your attention, but I agree. I think it's a worthy story to have in your back pocket at a party, and to be able to pull out the facts that emus won a war technically because the other party said, "Go ahead, you're fine, whatever, I'm done," and walked away. And so there's a bit of a let's do a little resolution here and kind of where are they now? What ended up happening to them?
Yeah.
So, for instance, we just told you about John, that eventually led to some government support. So that was a good win there. And also, like John, the soldiers who were once the subject of ridicule had their own transformation. So Major Meredith, Private Thompson, Lieutenant Simmons, and others returned to their duties, not with shame, but with a newfound respect for their feathery foes. They had faced an enemy that did not yield to bullets or military tactics, and their understanding of warfare had expanded, shaped by an experience as humbling as it was absurd. And so the Great Emu War transcended the fields of Western Australia. It grew into a symbol, a parable about human arrogance and unpredictability of nature and the importance of humility. And so on that note of, is this taught? Maybe not in our history in America, but classrooms across Australia did begin teaching this particular conflict not as a military failure, which, hey, this is just good marketing,
right?
But as a lesson in ecology, in conservation, and human values. And so, obviously, as we're talking about this today, you know, art, popular culture embraced the emus and this story, and poems, books, and tongue-in-cheek stories like the Emu War Memorial became a testament to the human ability to laugh at ourselves.
Wow.
And so years later, one soldier looking back at the chaos mused, in quotes, "We didn't beat them, but we sure learned a lot from them."
Wow.
And so
That's
that
beautiful.
is the story of the Great Emu War.
I hope
and
that
that's the
every
story.
baby emu born in Australia hears about this story, about their grandfather.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really does. Obviously, it harpens, it harkens. Is it
Yeah, harkens.
Harkens.
Yeah, you got
Sorry
it.
about that. On the idea again of you think this is easy. You think nature is simple. You think you can clear something that nature's, done. Like emus have been around for a long, long time.
Really long time.
And we just think, okay, well, let's bring in our high-tech machines and pop some bullets in them and we'll be fine. And that didn't end up happening.
Yeah, I think that's a really good lesson just in general. Yeah, exactly, about humans versus nature and realizing how crazy nature can be. And sometimes it's more than what you think. And so that blows my mind, Jeff. This was such a good story. I absolutely love this front to back. I also really enjoyed the laugh. And I hope everybody else listening got as much out of it as I did, because I was hysterical over here. I think I had to mute myself at one point just because I was laughing so hard, and I didn't want the whole podcast to be that.
That's fair. That's fair.
So
I was
good.
amused reading and writing this. So that's going to be it for the story portion. And then let's jump into our recurring segment. Yeah?
All right, let's do it. All right. Well, I'm here to actually introduce a brand new segment that we're going to have reoccurring every single week on Casual History. We haven't quite came up with a name for it yet officially. So if you guys have some really good ideas, please go ahead and go to our Twitter or Instagram or even Facebook at Casual X History and just send us your ideas. We would love to incorporate your ideas in this. But we actually are incorporating basically an AI co-host called Leo. And so Leo actually stands for Learning Entity and Oracle. And he is basically going to be our historic guide as he creates these games and we kind of play this together. So Jeffrey, are you ready for this new segment?
I'm ready. I'm excited to see what you've cooked up here because I don't have any clue what this is.
Well, perfect. That's the way I like it. Okay, so, well, in this game, we're actually going to play a little time warp trivia. So basically what that's going to be is we are going to be sharing 3 outlandish stories from history in each round. And the catch is only one of these tales is true, while the other 2 are completely fake. So it's really up to you to kind of determine which ones you think are real and which ones are fake, and we can kind of discuss those for fun. I thought that might be a little fun twist on this.
Sounds great, yeah.
And so I have 3 rounds, and at the very end, I will reveal the crazy story and a little bit of the backstory behind it as well. So I thought that might be a really fun game. So we
so you're going to reveal, just to understand, at the very end, only at the very end, which of the 3 rounds were the fake story, or after each round you'll reveal what the fake story is?
After all 3 rounds, I will reveal which one of those stories were real in those groups.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Do I get points? What's the point system?
You can. We have to make up a point system. Yeah, what do you want, Jeff?
We'll start a new chart on our backs or like on our side.
Yes.
An Excel sheet, and this will be week 1. Are you guessing, or is it just me guessing?
This is just gonna be you guessing this time. Okay. In the future, we might make it where we're both guessing and we can just discuss together. But for now, it's gonna be this week. You're trying to figure out which one is the fake story. And then
I'll do it to you next week, and then we'll just kind of have a running tally of who's the better podcast host.
I love it. I love it.
For the week, whoever has the most points. So I am inevitably going to be the best podcast host.
Sure. Whatever
this
you
week
say.
Because you don't have a chance. But we'll see if you can even it up next time. If I get any right, I guess that'll also be a clue.
I'm excited to see what you think of this, and I'm excited to hear what everybody listening thinks is the real story as well. So again, there's going to be 2 fake ones and 1 real story out of these rounds. So I'm just going to read off
before you do
round 1 for you here.
Before you do, I'm going to also mention for the people listening, we're going to put these questions. We're going to pose the same questions as a poll that you can actually interact with and give your answers to and see who else has answered with you, how many people agree with you. So I think if you're on the Apple Podcast app and Spotify app, I believe it works. I'm not sure about the other hosting platforms, but so get your phone out of your pocket if you're listening to it in your headphones.
Yes.
And if you want to answer, and then we'll tell you if you got it right.
All right, perfect. All right, so round one, Jeffrey. Are you ready? Okay, so I have 3 stories here for you. The first one is going to be the Great Spaghetti Harvest. So in 1957, the BBC reported on a Swiss family's successful spaghetti harvest, showing footage of people pulling strands of spaghetti down from the trees. The report explained that the bumper spaghetti prop was due to an unusually mild winter and the virtual disappearance of the spaghetti weevil. So that's story number 1.
That just sounds so fake off the jump.
Well, let's hear the rest of them.
But hold on. Let me dissect this a minute.
Sure.
The report explained that the bumper spaghetti crop.
Yes.
Jacob, what are you talking about?
That's describing the really good spaghetti crop that happened that year.
This
Jeffrey.
AI story is wild.
Leo's really good. I wouldn't test him.
Unusually mild winter and the virtual disappearance of the spaghetti weevil. Okay.
Now, I don't know if you know what the spaghetti weevil is, but for those who don't know,
it's fake, Jake.
That's an actual bug.
Okay,
that eats plants and stuff. So just hear that one out.
Hit me with the second one.
All right. So story number 2, the Eiffel Tower elopement. In 1902, a French poet named René was so enamored with the Eiffel Tower that he attempted to elope with it. He was found at the base of the tower with a marriage certificate and a large ring enough to fit around one of the tower's legs.
Okay, so that sounds wild too.
Right?
But two pieces sound... one sounds believable. You've seen TLC, My Strange Addiction.
Oh, yes. Right.
I think it was on that show that it explained that a man was in love with his car and married his car and was fully in love with an object. So that I don't necessarily think is crazy. What almost seems wild to me from that is that a ring large enough to fit around one of the tower's legs, the full width of the leg, or are we talking a metal beam? Because that's the crazy part to me.
Well,
and also
decide.
How would he get it over the leg? If we're talking a whole ring, like a completed ring.
Maybe it's one that you can clasp closed.
So it's a cheap ring. Okay, got it.
It could be a cheap ring. I mean, come on, it's a really big ring. I can't imagine how expensive it'd be.
Yeah, that sounds crazy. But the spaghetti weevil, that also sounds fake. If there's only one of these that are fake,
okay,
is there only 2? Hold on.
There's only one real story.
Oh, so 2 are fake, 1's real.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
So are you ready for the last one?
It better be the real one.
All right. So the last one is the Great Molasses Flood. In 1919, the city of Rome was flooded with molasses after a large storage vat at the candy factory burst. The wave of molasses was reported to be 15 feet high and moved at 35 miles an hour, causing significant damage and chaos to the city.
No.
One of these is a real story, Jeffrey, that really happened in history.
Okay, so let me just dissect all 3 just
I
briefly.
love this.
And if we have time to get to the next 2 rounds, great. But I do want to dissect this for a second. Molasses, you get called, you're slow as molasses.
For a reason.
Yeah, and then at the bottom it says moved at 35 miles per hour.
That must have been a lot of molasses. It was 15 feet high, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't believe that, but I don't believe the first one. Spaghetti weevil, get out of here.
You're stuck on the spaghetti weevil.
It's so fake. It's so fake that it says showing footage of pulling strands of spaghetti down from trees. That's completely fake. It's either it's real, but it was a parody, and people just did it like a spoof, like a joke. That's the only thing I could see how that could potentially be a real story.
Okay.
Eiffel Tower elopement oddly seems the most believable to me, but the ring, I can't get over the ring fitting around.
And you
one of the tower
believe
legs.
the molasses?
I don't believe the molasses at all.
You believe a molasses wave 15 feet high?
I don't.
And move 35 miles an hour.
I could believe 15 feet high, maybe if if it was just a store, like you said, it was.
Can you imagine the
factory.
amount of molasses that would have to be?
Are you trying to throw me
high?
off the trail here?
No, I'm just imagining it with you. I'm just now picturing 5 feet higher than a basketball goal. Okay, which one do you think is the real story, Jeffrey? Go ahead.
I'm gonna go with number 2, Eiffel Tower elopement.
Wow. Okay. So do I go ahead and reveal the answer, Jeffrey, or do we move on to the second round? Do we still have some times? I think we still have some time. So let's at least do round 2 as well. And maybe we can stop it there and I'll give you your answers that you're looking for. All right. So let's hop on over to round 2 here, where things just get a little bit more ridiculous. Okay. So if you thought round 1 was interesting with the spaghetti weevil, I think you're going to love this. Round 2. The story number 1 is the Penguin Uprising. In 1947, a group of penguins in Antarctica reportedly formed an organized uprising against a British research station. These researchers had to retreat and call for reinforcements to regain control of the station.
Believable. I 100,000% believe that, because in Antarctica, oh my, if I can speak, is a freaky place. In 1947,
but penguins,
those little devils, man, like
the little devils,
they're probably my least favorite.
I've never seen a really penguins.
I'm completely lying.
Wow, I was about to say everybody just boycotting casual history right after that one.
I love penguins, but I just. You know what it is? I think it's more the amusement of the picture it paints that I want it to be real.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say off the bat, that's real, but we're going to wait and see if anything else changes.
I know. In my brain, I want like a horde of cute little penguins like taking over a station. I just want to see it. It reminds me of like the Ewoks in Star Wars. That's how I imagine it in my head in Antarctica.
That's exactly what it would be.
All right. So that's story number 1. Story number 2 is the tomato trial. So in 1820, a man named Robert Johnson stood trial in Salem, New Jersey for eating a tomato. At the time, tomatoes were believed to be poisonous, and Johnson's public consumption of a tomato was seen as a suicidal act.
Wait, so he was eating a tomato and said, "Why are you eating that tomato? Get in the middle of the town, and we're going to have a trial around the tomato?"
Yes. Okay. So he was basically arrested because they thought tomatoes were poisonous.
You know what?
And him eating it was him trying to kill himself.
I do not like raw, like plain tomato on anything unless it's cooked. So I'm going to go, can we cuss on this? Are we trying to be on the 2.0? Are we trying to be clean?
I don't care personally, man. You do what you want. You express your emotions.
I'll just say, screw that guy. Because eating a public, I just think you're weird if you're eating a raw tomato like that anyway. So I think it sounds real though. 1820, they thought everything was probably horrible. I don't know. Like, I
mean, it could be true. It could be, Jeffrey. Well, I guess we'll have to wait till the end.
The next one sounds interesting.
Yeah. So the last story in this round is going to be the pastry war. So in 1838, France invaded Mexico over a dispute over damaged bakery. A French pastry chef living in Mexico City claimed that Mexican officers had damaged his bakery during a revolt. When the Mexican government refused to pay for the damages, France decided to invade.
I mean, yeah, I think that's a worthy
cause. I mean, I know you love your pastries, man, especially French pastries.
Yeah, I spent a few months in Paris, and as you know, Jacob, that's my little flex.
Your little flex, humble brag.
I am obsessed. And always have been, and I completely agree with that French pastry chef. I think he's, just standing up for what is good in the world, and it needed to happen. So
you would go to war over a bakery.
That's the true story. I think that's the true story.
Wow. Okay. All right. So now that you've heard both stories,
I believe it so wholeheartedly
because you love pastries that much. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So for round 2, you're saying the pastry war is the one that you believe is correct.
Correct.
And then what about round 1, Jeffrey? Which one of those stories stood out to you? Which one's real?
Was real.
Eiffel Tower. All right. Yeah. So let's go ahead and reveal the answers, shall we? So for round 1, the real story was the Great Spaghetti Harvest. This is a true event, albeit a prank. The BBC pulled off this famous April Fool's Day hoax in 1957, fooling many viewers into believing that spaghetti grew on trees.
What did I just say? What did I say? I said that. I said, it's completely fake unless it was a prank or a joke.
Well, you did a good job.
Do I get a half point
sniffing
for that
out.
No?
You get a half point. I'll give you a half point for it anyway, since you were pretty close.
Yeah.
For round 2, our winners are the pastry war. This is a true event. France did indeed.
They invaded.
All right, cut the podcast. We're done. France did invade Mexico in 1838 over a dispute over damages to a French pastry chef's shop.
Way
So
to
that
go.
is a real story.
France does it right. You know,
They have their priorities straight, dude. They know what's up.
I think it was a worthy. Well, I mean, I don't know, but that seems like a really, wild thing to go to war for. But they said invaded. Invaded sounds
Man.
wild. That sounds like boots on the ground. That's no small trek either.
No.
By the way, to get from France to Mexico, like the ocean is large.
Yes.
And in 1838, that's no small feat. So
That's pretty wild.
that must have been some really good pastry.
I can only imagine, man. They have amazing pastries over there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, awesome.
Wow.
So that is our wrap up of this week's segment on casual history. But obviously, if you guys had different answers or what you guys did you guys know these immediately off the bat? If you did, please let us know. I would love to hear, and I would love to look at those polls with you, Jeffrey, next week and see how many people guessed right or incorrect.
Sounds good.
Because
I think we'll
were
find
all
some
insane.
interesting answers probably. But kind of as a wrap up for the whole podcast, thanks for listening, everyone. We are Casual History. My name's Jeff. That's Jacob. We're going to be posting weekly again because, as we said at the very top, 4 or 5 times, the boys are back. And so next week, Jacob will be bringing in the subject, and this is the format that we're going to be doing this podcast in, maybe with some slight adjustments if we find some things we like better. But I think this worked pretty well, Jake, don't you?
Yeah, no, I really like this setup. So I'm looking forward to the next week where I really get to blow your mind with crazy stories that I have ready to go.
It's got to be more crazy than the Emu War. So
I know. I don't know how I'm going to top it, but I'm going to do it. I promise.
Sounds good. All right, everyone. We'll see you next week.
All right, later.